Hello, I'm Lisa Valerio, the founder and president of the Phoenicia Foundation. On behalf of myself and the board, we'd like to thank you for listening to this amazing webinar that is part one of a 6-week series on the important role of nonverbal communication. This webinar is presented by two amazing and passionate speech pathologists, Luna DeCurtis and Dawn Ferreira. Part one, they will cover the introduction and definition of nonverbal communication. This series would not be possible if it was not for our sponsors, Silicon Valley Bank Foundation and the Lewis Greenwood Foundation. Phoenicia Foundation is honored by their support and all our volunteers and donors who help us achieve our mission of helping special needs children, their families, and their community thrive. If interested in learning more about Phoenicia Foundation, visit our website at www.phoeniciafoundation.org. Thanks again for listening, and now I will play this pre-recorded webinar.
Hello, and welcome to this exciting new collaboration between the Phoenicia Foundation and myself, Dawn, and my colleague Luna, both speech-language pathologists. We're going to bring to you this series on topics in speech, language, communication, and social skills development. Our first topic is on nonverbal communication and the important role it plays as a means of connecting with others. This topic is divided into 6 parts, each lasting about 10 minutes. This first part introduces and defines nonverbal communication. The second part covers nonverbal communication across the lifespan. The third part highlights the breakdowns that occur in nonverbal communication for various populations. The fourth part looks at some therapeutic interventions used for those with nonverbal communication deficits. The fifth part will focus on nonverbal communication for social purposes, especially for those using an augmentative or alternative communication system or device, known as AAC. The sixth part will discuss nonverbal communication for inferencing and executive functioning skills. You probably know a lot more about this topic than you realize. In fact, nonverbal communication is the first language we all used as infants to talk to our caregivers. In turn, our caregivers became expert interpreters of our needs, intentions, moods, and general state of well-being. As infants, we used facial expressions, body language, vocalizations, breath patterns, cries, and eventually eye contact to communicate. Nonverbal communication, even at its most basic level, was vital to our survival. The power of that communication and its interpretation by our caregivers allowed us to connect, have our needs met, and laid the foundation for more advanced forms of communication. However, for some in the special needs or neurodiverse populations, nonverbal communication might become a primary challenge, such as those living with an autism spectrum disorder, or it can become primary means of expression for those who use an AAC resource throughout the lifespan. Additionally, the use of nonverbal communication is a powerful bridge to support the development of verbal or spoken language. It can help with higher level cognitive skill development, such as inferencing and facilitation of comprehension, and can strengthen or sustain some aspects of social connection. Now, my colleague Luna is going to give you some more examples about nonverbal communication. Luna?
Thanks, Dawn. Yes, nonverbal communication is our first language and really the most important. It happens during that first year before the words come. And it happens universally all over the world. This is related to our communication development from day one. Like Don said, it really sets the tone for our later communication, and it continues across the lifespan. Now, we're going to be talking about what it looks like, why it's important, and what happens when it's missing in that first year. So again, like Don mentioned, from day one, kids are using their eye contact to just look up at people, recognize people as they hear voices, and we respond to the babies looking at us. They may smack their lips if they're hungry, or yawn if they're tired. Even if it's reflexive, we are taking that in and making meaning of that gesture. Then they start intentionally reaching when they want something, or maybe swiping away if they don't. Maybe they are pulling something towards them, maybe even sticking their arms out to be able to get a hug, or if they don't want it, pushing it away, right? Crossing their arms, shaking their head to say no. This all happens again in that first year. We also get that really important pointing that happens that allows us to reference what they see so we can see it too. And even the referential eye contact, they're looking at something, we're looking at something, we're looking at it together but not saying it. It is very subtle and very meaningful. And this goes into adulthood across the lifespan and certainly across cultures. Although there will be cultural differences, there are some universal signs such as stop. You put your hand up and you even move back to let somebody know you're uncomfortable, or the opposite, when you wave and smile, right? It's a universal sign of welcome. And this also allows us to travel to other countries, not always know the language, but communicate with that nonverbal gesture, facial expressions, our body language. And it does so for the little ones. When they're playing in the sandbox, they're playing at the park, they don't need to speak the same language with words as another child. They're going to be communicating with their facial expressions and their body language and all the other nonverbal communication. This is why, though, if it is not well developed in that first or second year, it really can be problematic throughout a child's life, because nonverbal communication is so related to the context, right? That in the moment connection. You could see how it would affect the social communication skills of a child and those social relationships that they're trying to build. That is why we've chosen to do this series, where we can help explain why nonverbal communication is so important, what it looks like and sounds like, and how to use it in meaningful ways, and also how to interpret it from others. And now Dawn will talk a little bit more about varied populations that use it.
You know, Luna, when you were giving us examples, I was thinking about the smile, how important that communication is and how universal that is. And, you know, there are variations of a smile. A smile can mean a lot of different things, but the power of the smile is something that most of us can relate to. Well, not only is nonverbal communication important for those who are verbal, but what about those who are nonverbal communicators? There are individuals for whom it becomes a primary means of communication, whether it's through gestures, sounds, body language, augmentative and alternative communication devices, or a picture exchange communication system like PECS, or sign language like American Sign Language. These are nonverbal means of communicating that might be an individual's primary means of connecting with others. Now, families living with neurodiverse populations are truly experts at interpreting even the subtlest variations of movement, eye gaze, body language, gestures, or even a non-response which conveys a message. It all carries meaning. We all look to those families to teach us how to interpret these nonverbal communications, and then we, as speech language pathologists, will build upon that foundation that they've already established. Nonverbal communication is a powerful, legitimate, universal form of communication used across cultures, the lifespan, diverse abilities, and diverse populations. We thank you so much for joining us today on this first part in our series on nonverbal communication. And we invite you to join us tomorrow when we talk about, well, maybe not necessarily tomorrow, but another time, to talk about how nonverbal communication changes over the lifespan. Now, I want to leave you with this. I want you now to start thinking about how you use nonverbal communication, how others use it, and how good you are at interpreting the meaning. All right, we'll see you again here next time. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.